Chapter 13 Grand Prize All of the Phoenix. Weapons, weapons. As the lottery wheel spun, Lin Xiu became excited. Soon the needle began to slow down. Tss! Union coins again! The needle seemed to be slowing down near the union coins. It made Lin Xiu very disappointed. Is this rigged? He thought. He always got Union's coins. However, just as Lin Xiu was feeling indignant, that needle moved a little and landed on the grand prize. Wow! Lin Xiu received a shock. Congratulations, master, on getting the grand prize, all of the Phoenix. The system's cold voice rang out, but it sounded exceptionally melodious in Lin Xiu's ears. All of the Phoenix? What's this? Lin Xiu was stunned. Then a card was suspended in the air right in front of him. Skill card? Lin Xiu pupils were constricted at this moment. Only rank 6 warriors and above could create skill cards. These cards contain the cultivation tips and the entire cultivation process of various skills. In the present era, cultivation methods obviously wouldn't be like the past where they read secret manuals. Also, the levels of the skill cards were divided into bronze, silver, gold, diamond. Theoretically speaking, the higher the level of the skill card was, the greater would be its power. Why is it a bronze card? Lin Xiu took the card and it had an icy touch. The card was thin, but it was made of special metal. Lin Xiu was slightly disappointed. This skill card was for spear techniques, and it was only a bronze level card. This grand prize was a little pathetic. However, just at this moment, Lin Xiu realized that there was a number 1 indicated in the back of the bronze card. His eyes narrowed. This is a skill card that could grow? Lin Xiu was shocked. This type of card was even more precious than the diamond card. It would change as the user cultivated. This meant that as long as he cultivated the skill, the bronze level, the card would advance to silver level and so on. This is a gem. Lin Xiu quickly placed the card into his pocket and kept it properly. You could choose your future weapon before becoming an official warrior and could cultivate skills compatible with your weapon. When the time came, you would be much stronger. At first, Lin Xiu was still considering what weapon to choose. But after obtaining this card, Lin Xiu decided that he would use spears. As the saying goes, it takes a month to learn how to use a staff, a year to learn how to use a saber, and a lifetime to learn how to use the spear. A spear was the king of 100 soldiers. It was the hardest to learn. If not for this skill card, Lin Xiu wouldn't have picked this weapon. Why are you giggling foolishly there? A cold voice resounded. Lo Ye had opened her eyes and was staring at Lin Xiu as though he was an idiot. Cough, cough. Nothing. Did you hear that sound? Lo Ye looked afar as she asked softly. Sound? Lin Xiu was taken aback and his ears immediately perked up. There was only silence around them in the darkness initially. But when Lin Xiu listened carefully, he could hear some faint noises. It sounded as though someone was walking across the grass. Someone's approaching. Lo Ye nodded and said, It should be an adventure team. Some evolved beasts only appeared at night, so warriors who specialized in hunting these beasts would also come out at night. Lin Xiu encountered these so-called adventure teams before, and they were like bandits. At this moment, his expression changed. "What do we do now?" "Leave." Lo Ye knitted her brows and whispered. She was badly injured and had not recovered yet. If they didn't leave right now and encountered warriors with bad intention, they would be in huge trouble. Lin Xiu nodded. Just as he was about to get up and leave, he realized that Luo Ye was still lying next to the tree branch and looking at him. "You still can't move?" Luo Ye didn't reply, and her gaze was still cold. However, after spending a day together, Lin Xiu roughly knew what she was like and directly carried her up. "Did I ask you to carry me?" Luo Ye didn't look too happy at this moment. It was the first time she was so close to a guy, and she felt a little strange, as though she was shy. "Well, you didn't. I did it on my own accord, all right?" Lin Xiu didn't care about her words and quickly ran forward. At this time, he could hear the sounds getting closer. It seemed like those people would be reaching them soon. There was someone here just now." Not long after they headed off, a group found a bonfire where Lin Xiu had been. Seeing that the fire was still burning, they could easily figure out that those people just now must have heard their footsteps and left. "Seems like there are other warriors around here. If we encounter them later, just kill them straight away." The leader smiled sinisterly and announced. In this forest, killing people for treasure was not a rare sight. Phew, so heavy. After covering some distance, Lin Xiu couldn't help but remark. Luo Ye gritted her teeth, and then she heard him. If she didn't care about her identity, she would have bitten him. She might appear quite cold, but she was still a girl after all. Which girl could tolerate being called heavy? "It's the sword," Luo Ye sneered. "Sword? What did she mean?" As they continued ahead, they saw a pair of tiny red eyes staring at them. Under the moonlight, they could vaguely tell that it was a snake. "Tss, why did he encounter this sort of thing again at a time like this? When it rains, it pours. Disaster piling up on one another." Lin Xiu instinctively activated the analytic eye. Rank 2 red-winged snake. Characteristics: snake type. More active at night. Contains venom in its fangs. Overall combat strength 670. Combat strength of 670? Fortunately, it wasn't considered too high, and Lin Xiu's current combat strength was already 462. However, the troublesome part was that he didn't have any weapons right now. If he fought with this red-winged snake with bare hands and got bitten, he would be in trouble. "Hold this." Just then, Luo Ye handed the long sword to him. Lin Xiu didn't hesitate and took it immediately. Then there was a loud thud. The second he held the long sword, he realized that it was extremely heavy and dropped it on the ground. The sharp blade actually pierced deeply into the ground. "I already told you it's the sword," Luo Ye's voice sounded. Lin Xiu finally understood what she meant. She was refuting the fact that he said she was heavy. Chapter 14. Poisoned. "What material is this made of?" Lin Xiu clicked his tongue. It might be made up of a special metal from another planet. Otherwise, it was impossible for it to be so sharp. "Stop talking nonsense. Lay me down and deal with it," she said to him coldly. Lin Xiu quickly laid her down next to a huge tree, then pulled that long sword out of the ground and held it tightly with both hands. It was really too heavy, judging by the way she had previously brandished the sword. Just how strong were those two small arms of hers? "On your left," she hurriedly called out. Left? At this moment, the red-winged snake had already charged over at a fast speed. The snake kept spitting, and its red eyes were staring straight at Lin Xiu as though it saw something delicious. Swish! Lin Xiu waved the sword with force, but that red-winged snake was simply too quick and managed to dodge, turn, and pierce it downwards. Lo Ye knitted her brows and said plainly, "For an evolved beast of this rank, she could deal with it easily if she wasn't injured." Hearing her instructions, Lin Xiu was taken aback at first, but quickly reacted to it. He held the sword with both hands and did it accordingly. That red-winged snake was instantly stabbed in the middle and nailed to the ground. "Sss!" It let out few noises and desperately struggled to bite Lin Xiu. Since his body was struck to the ground by the long sword, it couldn't move at all. "Is that simple?" "Tss, you're really mad, huh?" Lin Xiu heaved a sigh of relief and said to that snake, "Come on, bite me, bite me. Ah!" Just at this moment, the red-winged snake had actually broke apart and it flew straight to Lin Xiu, biting his arm. Lo Ye couldn't help smile when she saw this scene, but she quickly returned to her self-usual. "Darn it!" Lin Xiu pulled its head from his arm, then tossed it on the ground and trampled on it hard, turning it into mud. Ding! "Congratulations, Master, on killing a rank 2 red-winged snake. You've gained 2,500 experience points." When Lin Xiu heard the icy cold voice in his head, he heaved a sigh of relief. "You didn't warn me." Lin Xiu looked at Lo Ye and said angrily. She definitely knew that this red-winged snake head could be separated from its body. "You didn't ask." Lo Ye glanced askance at Lin Xiu and replied indifferently. Lin Xiu's mouth twitched. Then he retrieved the odd crystal from the snake head that he had trampled on. Rank 2 odd crystal. It was worth quite a bit. However, Lin Xiu froze all of a sudden. He suddenly felt a sharp pain where he was bitten. His entire body became scorching hot. Oh no! The analytic eye had mentioned that this snake's fangs were venomous. "There's cold water over there." Lo Ye's eyes glanced at the side as she spoke. "Cold water can detoxify it?" Lin Xiu returned to his senses when he heard her. Did she mean that the cold water could get rid of this snake's venom? He didn't think much about it and quickly walked to the side, then jumped into that river directly. The river waters was very clear and at the bottom could be seen under the moonlight. As the cold river water soaked his whole body, Lin Xiu immediately felt the burning sensation being suppressed. Phew, he felt relieved. Such a type of venom would cause one's body to be burning hot, but with the help of the cold water, it shouldn't affect him too much. "Oh, it's you!" The leader of the group laughed and said. Not long after, a group of people walked over and saw Lo Ye sitting against the tree. "Go away or be killed by me." Lo Ye frowned and shouted coldly at them. Zhang Liang looked at Lo Ye leaning against the tree and the long sword that was a distance away. He could roughly guess that she was injured, and he was delighted. He saw this woman previously and she managed to kill a rank 3 evolved beast with her sword. He was quite surprised by her terrifying strength. More importantly, she was quite young. "Boss, it looks like she's severely injured and can't move," one of the men whispered into Zhang Liang's ear. Zhang Liang nodded. He thought so too. Zhang. Just at this moment, Lo Ye's eyes constricted as she extended her right arm, and that long sword flew towards her hand. She stared at those people and said coldly, "Get lost. Don't try to scare me. You can't use any force now, can you?" Zhang Liang was frightened, but he still said with a smirk. Chapter 15. Give you guys 5 seconds. With that thought, Zhang Liang continued walking towards Lo Ye. Seeing such a stunning beauty, his heart started to flutter the moment he laid eyes on her. Lo Ye bit her lips gently. It took a lot of effort to just pick her long sword, and there was no way she could fight. What was she going to do? She was at her wit's end when Lin Xiu was already walking over sneakily. After soaking in the cold water, his body had recovered quite a bit. At least the burning sensation was gone. However, when he saw those people walking over, Lin Xiu turned pale with fright. These people are too fast. There were about 5 to 6 people and they were all warriors. "Heh, don't worry, I'll treat you well." Zhang Liang walked over and saw Lo Ye was merely pointing her sword at him, but she could neither move nor attack. This had confirmed his guess. "Are you courting death?" Just then, a cold voice came from behind. Lo Ye was surprised when she heard this familiar voice. This chap actually dared to come out? Doesn't he know that with his strength, he wouldn't be able to deal with these people at all? "Who's that?" Zhang Liang got a fright when he heard this voice and turned around. Immediately he saw a soaking wet guy walking towards them. The others were on their guards too as they looked at Lin Xiu. Zhang Liang, rank 2 warrior, good with knives. Overall combat strength is around 1540. Ling Hong, rank 1, warrior, good with swords. Lin Xiu slowly spoke as his gaze swept across these people. Zhang Liang and the others were dumbfounded when they heard Lin Xiu's words. Lin Xiu wasn't wearing a combat strength computation apparatus, yet he managed to accurately measure his combat strength and even knew the ranks. This made them tremble inside. "I'll give you guys 5 seconds to leave. If not, all of you will remain here." Lin Xiu continued speaking without any expression. He looked at these people as though he was looking at ants. At this moment, Zhang Liang's face changed. He sized Lin Xiu up but couldn't tell how strong he was at all. From the way Lin Xiu spoke, he must be an expert. He knew that some high-ranking warriors could hide their information and appear just like an ordinary person. With that thought, he was even more frightened. "Senior, we'll leave right now." Zhang Liang glanced at his lackeys and quickly retreated. They didn't want to lose their little lives here. Lin Xiu stared at them till they finally left before he heaved a sigh of relief and sat on the ground. "You acted pretty well." Lo Ye looked at him and said plainly, but she was also somewhat curious. How did Lin Xiu know the ranks of these people? He was clearly a beginner warrior, and even a rank 1 warrior would be able to defeat him easily. Lin Xiu rested for a while and said, "Let's get going now. We'll be in trouble if they come to their senses and return again." She nodded. Lin Xiu didn't think much of it, and he carried Lo Ye and ran towards the other side. She was still holding on to that long sword, so it was still quite tiring for Lin Xiu. "Boss, I feel like something isn't right." As Zhang Liang and the others were leaving, one of the guys frowned and spoke up. "Isn't right?" Zhang Liang stopped in his tracks and thought about it carefully. Then his face turned sinister. "Great chap! He dares to fool me, huh? Chase and kill them." Lin Xiu was patting as he carried Lo Ye and ran to the other side. That dumbass was actually so easily fooled. Thankfully, he had the analytic eye. Seemed like the analytic eye could analyze the strength of evolved beasts and warriors that were 2 ranks above him. But as for those that were 3 ranks and above, it wouldn't work. After running without stopping in the other direction for some time, Lin Xiu's body was exhausted and he actually fell asleep instantly. Not sure how long had passed, but by the time Lin Xiu woke up, he realized that the sky was starting to get brighter. He was surrounded by huge trees and there were many vines hanging down above them. Also, Lin Xiu realized there was a soft body lying next to him at this moment. He was taken aback at first, then came to his senses after a split second. Lin Xiu took a closer look and wasn't sure when he began hugging Lo Ye. She was asleep at the moment as well, and the eyes of her tender and fair face were tightly shut. Lin Xiu could see those long eyelashes very clearly. She also had a faint fragrance on her body, and Lin Xiu couldn't help but take a deep breath. All right, he kept running yesterday and didn't expect that he actually fell asleep on the way. At this moment, Lo Ye knitted her brows slightly and her eyelashes moved like she was about to wake up. Lin Xiu quickly let her go when he saw that, then placed her against the giant tree at the side. If she found out that he hugged her to sleep, according to this woman's character, she would probably kill him. Getting a little hungry, but there wasn't any water source nearby, and he didn't see any animal either, this made Lin Xiu sigh. He was really unlucky. Meanwhile, Lo Ye had already opened her eyes and her pupils contracted when she saw Lin Xiu. The long sword in her hand pointed at Lin Xiu instinctively. "It's me!" Lin Xiu saw this the second he turned around and broke out in cold sweat instantly. The tip of the sword was already at his throat and was so close to piercing through. Swish! When she saw Lin Xiu, she appeared somehow surprised. She then withdrew her long sword and stuck it to the ground. "You've recovered?" Lin Xiu heaved a sigh of relief and asked. Lo Ye's knitted brows relaxed slightly and she shook her head. "I probably need another 2 days. That lightning leopard counterattack was simply too powerful. The electric current had some sort of energy that could paralyze nerves, and it ran through every part of her body. If she wanted to fully recover, she would probably need 2 more days." Sss. Not long after, they heard a sound nearby. Lin Xiu was shocked. Could it be those warriors again? "Evolved beast." Lo Ye glanced in that direction and said indifferently. The moment she spoke, the long sword was initially struck in the ground, immediately flew in Lin Xiu's direction with a swish. Chapter 16. I'll kill you the next time I see you. Time passed quickly, and during these 2 days, Lin Xiu used Lo Ye's long sword and kept killing those evolved beasts under her instructions. This woman was terrifying. She was young, but she had an exceptional understanding of the habits of all kinds of evolved beasts and the ways in which they attacked. Lin Xiu couldn't ever remember how many evolved beasts he had killed in total. 2 days later, in the early morning, Lin Xiu had reached level 9. He instinctively pulled out the attributes board in his head. Host, Lin Xiu, level 9, experience 11,280. 1,008 experience required for the next level. Strength 67. Physique 40. Speed 40. Skill analytic eye. Rage build up 0 out of 100. Overall combat strength 588. Do you want these odd crystals? Lin Xiu held a small sack with many odd crystals inside. Lo Ye shook her head. At this moment she was almost fully recovered and was even more indifferent. Where are you going? Seeing that she was walking in another direction with her long sword, Lin Xiu asked. After spending a few days together, Lin Xiu knew that she was only called on the surface Lightning Leopard. Lo Ye answered after a pause. You're still going to kill that thing? Lin Xiu had a headache just thinking about that lightning leopard. I won't fail, said Lo Ye indifferently. After recovering her strength, she appeared very terrifying. Also, I'll kill you the next time I see you. Lo Ye spoke as she walked in the other direction. What do you mean? Lin Xiu was stunned and his eyes widened. This woman was beating the hand that fed her. Lo Ye didn't speak. She knew that because of what happened that night, Lin Xiu had left a shadow in her heart. But she had to cultivate quickly and stay focused. Where are we meeting next? Lin Xiu shouted in her direction. But there wasn't any reply. However, after a minute of silence, there was a faint sound coming from the distance. Sacred ground. Sacred ground? Where is that place? When Lin Xiu returned to his senses, she had already disappeared. Lin Xiu shook his head and hung that small sack around him, then headed in the other direction. After these few days of fighting, there were slight changes to him. He had become more determined, and his agility had improved. It was also easier to deal with ordinary evolved beasts, but he still had to be wary. There weren't many high-ranking evolved beasts around here, but there were still some. With a slightly rusty battle blade in his hands, Lin Xiu went deeper into the forest. According to his current strength, he could climb up the vines from the cliffs and should be able to return to the place just now. Lin Xiu continued walking in that direction carefully, and soon he reached the area with the river. At this moment, Lin Xiu became more and more cautious. While killing evolved beasts these 2 days, he was also on his guard against those people from that night. After all, that adventure team had 5 to 6 people, and they were all rank 1 warriors, and their leader was even a rank 2 warrior. By noon, he realized that he was about to reach the place where he cooked a fish, and there seemed to be some noises. Lin Xiu knitted his brows. Is that an evolved beast or a human? He thought about it and still made his way over carefully. Just then, a cold light flashed by. Lin Xiu's pupils constricted and he quickly bent over and dodged. Swish! A tuft of hair was chopped off. Hey! You sent yourself here! Li Hong sneered. He was one of the warriors from that night, often thinking about how he got frightened by a beginner warrior like Lin Xiu. He was enraged. Lin Xiu's eyes glanced around and he realized that Li Hong was alone. He became relaxed in an instant. As long as he wasn't a rank 2 warrior, Lin Xiu might have a chance. The long sword in Li Hong's hand was like a snake, and it swung at Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu used his battle blade to block directly. Dang! There was a loud sound as the metals collided, and the rust on the battle blade fell off quite a bit. The long sword continued brandishing towards Lin Xiu like a snake, and its sharp tip kept swaying. If one's hand got pierced, the flesh on their hand would probably fall off. It was ruthless. Bronze skill, spitting white snake. Ling Hong laughed sinisterly as he looked at his long sword wrapping around Lin Xiu's blade like a snake and kept stabbing Lin Xiu's hand. At this moment, unless Lin Xiu threw his own weapon away, his hand would be chopped off. Lin Xiu also sensed the danger, and raising his brows, then lifted his leg and kicked Ling Hong in the stomach. Minor accomplishment. Li Hong scoffed, and his left hand blocked his abdomen immediately. As a rank 1 warrior, his physical attribute was pretty good, so it was impossible for Lin Xiu's kick to cause any injury to him. However, something unexpected happened. A cracking sound rang out from that left hand that blocked Lin Xiu's kick. It was fractured. The sharp pain made Li Hong's face ashen, and that long sword, which was wrapped around Lin Xiu's blade, was immediately redrawn. How could it be? A beginner warrior who didn't even know any skill actually fractured his left hand with a kick? How strong was he? Li Hong had a hint of menace in his eyes. He underestimated his opponent and got his hand fractured. He wouldn't make the same mistake again this time. After all, Li Xiu was a beginner warrior, and even if Li Hong's left hand was fractured, Li Xiu wouldn't be able to kill him. Li Hong handled the long sword with his right hand, and just as Lin Xiu was about to take this chance to attack, Lin Hong slashed his long swords at him. He moved very quickly and managed to stab Lin Xiu's chest. Sila! Lin Xiu had a tear on his battle robe and a fresh blood seeped out. Hitting his target with just one move, Li Hong regained his confidence. Lin Xiu was just a beginner warrior and wasn't a match for him at all. However, Lin Xiu's reaction was quite swift, and each time his long sword was about to strike his vital part, Lin Xiu would dodge. He merely got attacked at insignificant areas. Feel like Lin Xiu was intentionally letting him strike. Go to hell! After missing his target so many times, Li Hong was enraged. But all of a sudden, Lin Xiu, who had been dodging the attacks, directly swung his battle blade at Li Hong. Hey, you think you can chop me to death with that rusty blade? Huh? Chapter 17. Slaughter. The battle blade moved very swiftly and made a crisp sound as it sliced through the air. Dang! Lin Hong wanted to use his long sword and wrap it around the battle blade, but he didn't expect that the tremendous force would make him let go of his long sword. A dreary bang resounded and the battle blade fell onto his shoulder directly and chopped his arm off. Who said that a rusty blade can kill, huh? Lin Xiu sneered under Li Hong's gaze of disbelief. There was still quite a gap between a beginner warrior and rank 1 warrior. The most obvious difference was that the rank 1 warrior could cultivate skills. Lin Xiu kept dodging just now, and he was even hurt by Lin Hong from time to time because he wanted to fill up his rage meter. With his power-up strike, Li Hong didn't have time to react at all. "You will be killed by them," Li Hong spoke with a trembling voice. In the next second, his body was split into two. "Congratulations, Master, on killing a rank 1 warrior. You've gained 3,100 experience. Congratulations, Master, on leveling up to level 10. You've gained 10 potential points. Congratulations, Master, on reaching level 10. You've unlocked the skill Fury." Hearing the system's pleasant voice, Lin Xiu got excited. Level 10. He was finally level 10. Most importantly, he actually unlocked the skill. Lin Xiu tapped it open. Fury. Active skill. A great increase in strength, speed, and physique for 10 minutes after activation. Great increase? Just how much is the great increase? Lin Xiu wasn't sure, but at this moment he quickly added these 10 potential points to his speed. His speed climbed from the original 40 points to 50 points. Then before Lin Xiu could take a break, a number of key energies appeared. Pa pa pa. A strong key charged over and the surrounding trees were destroyed. Lin Xiu's pupils constricted and he moved in a flash. Right now, he was glad that he just added 10 points to his speed. Otherwise, he might not be able to dodge this attack. "Li Hong!" A man ran over and immediately saw the corpse that was just chopped into two. The scene was gruesome. "Boss, is that chap?" That man looked up and saw Lin Xiu's figure a short distance away. Zhang Liang jumped down from the tree nearby. That silver skill of his blade of the wind actually didn't hit Lin Xiu, and he couldn't help but frown. How could that brat be so fast? Also, observing from a distance, Lin Xiu was clearly different from that night. Seeing Li Hong's body, Zhang Liang had a murderous look in his eyes. He wasn't going to let this guy live. "Let's attack together and kill him." Zhang Liang's pupils constricted and he rushed towards Lin Xiu. Fast. His speed was extremely fast. The gap in strength between a rank 1 warrior and a rank 2 warrior was too apparent. Lin Xiu held his battle blade and wanted to use it to defend, but Zhang Liang had already used his saber and chopped Lin Xiu's battle blade into two. Silver skill, violent shadow saber. Zhang Liang did not hesitate at all and yelled, directly using his strongest skill. The chopper in his hand transformed into innumerable shadows. It was impossible to tell which was illusions and which was real. Lin Xiu cursed in his heart. The difference in their levels was too big and he couldn't fight him off at that time at all. Without hesitation, Lin Xiu directly activated skill he recently acquired. Fury! Go to hell! Zhang Liang bellowed. At the same time, Lin Xiu felt a surge of strength in his body. The muscles in his arms bulged, and his senses became exceptionally sharp. He rolled backwards and hid. There were too many shadows of saber, but as long as they didn't touch him, he would be fine. At this moment, Lin Xiu fled to the top of a tree at the side and hid. Where did he go? Zhang Liang's eyes widened. With Lin Xiu's speed just now, it was impossible for him to react. But how? How did Lin Xiu suddenly have an explosive increase in speed that was comparable to the speed of a rank 2 warrior like him? The other 4 people looked around, but the trees were large and the leaves about the trees dense. If one hid inside, they couldn't see them at all. Lin Xiu appeared to be holding his breath, and at this moment they had no idea where he went. Find him! Be careful! Zhang Liang's face darkened. Never mind that he got fooled once by a beginner warrior. He didn't expect to actually be fooled again. Lin Xiu was still on top of the tree, holding his breath. The effect of fury was simply a surprise to Lin Xiu. He felt that his attributes in every aspect had almost doubled. His strength was already at the level of a rank 1 warrior, but it was still a little challenging to kill 4 rank 1 warriors and a rank 2 warrior. There was only one way to kill them. Looking over from the tree, he immediately saw that among those 4 rank 1 warriors there was one who used the spear. Split up! Zhang Liang's eyes were sinister. He knew that Lin Xiu must be hiding on the top of trees around here, and once there was a single movement, Zhang Liang would sense it instantly. Hearing that, Zhang Liang said, they split up and carefully headed in 5 different directions. Great! The man holding the long spear was walking in Lin Xiu's direction. Through the gaps in the leaves, Lin Xiu used force on his body and charged down directly. Over there! Zhang Liang spun around in that direction when he heard the noise. Bang! Lin Xiu took his chance before the rank 1 warrior had time to react and jump onto this man. He locked his legs around the man's neck, then forcefully pushed him to the ground. Crack! Lin Xiu used force again and the man's neck broke at 90 degrees angle. That man's eyes widened and he looked as though he died with a grudge. Without hesitation, Lin Xiu immediately took the long spear from the man. This was a silver spear and he wasn't sure what metal it was made of. The tip of the spear was extremely sharp and even emitted a cold glint. Although he had never used the spear before, the spear techniques appeared in his head instantaneously. That's right, the skill card that Lin Xiu had used previously, Awe of the Phoenix. Bastard! Go to hell! A warrior was enraged when he saw that Lin Xiu was successful in his sneak attack. He gripped his battle blade tightly and charged at Lin Xiu. Chapter 18. Who says I'm dead? In this world, the mainly used weapons were either blades or swords. Spears were uncommon. Clang! When the man with the battle blade slashed down, Lin Xiu used the spear shaft to block. The sudden burst of strength forced his battle blade to be flung away. At this moment, his eyes glistened with light as he thrust the spear forward. Skill, awe of the phoenix! In that instant, all the power in Lin Xiu's bodies was transferred into the shaft. He immediately felt drained, but the spear tip seemed to have unleashed a flame. Bang! A cold gleam of light followed the movement of his spear and a charred smell wafted through the air. The flames transformed into a blazing bird and struck right at the man's body. Violent gale, stirring clouds! The man turned pale with fright. What sort of skill was that? He did not have the time to think and unleashed his own skill. It was a blade-slashing skill that was accompanied by large gales of wind. Although it was not very practical skill, he thought that he should be able to blow away the fire. Bang! The blazing bird was unaffected and covered his entire body. Ah! The immense pain caused him to wail. It was impossible to rely on Awe of Phoenix to kill him, but with the time given by the flames, Lin Xiu quickly caught up and thrust his spear. With a splat, the spear penetrated through his enemy's chest. Rank 1 warrior successfully killed. Kill! Zhang Liang and the others were shocked. The skill was too bizarre, and he got the feeling that Lin Xiu could not be left alive. Oh, of the phoenix! Lin Xiu was fearless even when he saw them rushing at him. One man, one spear. It was as though he could hold out against 10,000 men. As expected of the skill of the phoenix, he was capable of growing into diamond grain. Lin Xiu felt boundless power spewing from his spear tip. Zang, zang. The entire spear seemed to release a cry. Just as Lin Xiu waved the spear, it felt as though every move and stance had appeared in his mind and his execution became natural. Bang! The flames enveloped the spear and transformed into a gigantic flaming bird. Be careful! Zhang Liang and his team were all stunned by the scene. Such a display only appeared in his gold skills. They immediately retreated, afraid of being caught in the damage. But strangely, the flaming bird only expanded its wings and disappeared. Damn it! We let him run away! Zhang Liang smashed his fist into the tree right beside him and fumed through his teeth. At this moment, Lin Xiu was running for his dear life. After an unknown period of time, he hid behind a broken tree at the bottom of the precipice and heaved a sigh of relief. Tired, so tired. He leaned against the tree and gasped for breath. When he used awe of the phoenix for the first time, he felt as though all the energy in his body had been drawn. The second time was only fake, but he did not expect them to get fooled. For a moment, none of them dared to rush forward, and the repercussion of fury had set in. He could not even move his finger at all. He closed his eyes and started to rest. Time passed slowly. When it came to the afternoon, Lin Xiu felt his energy coming back. The silver spear had cracks on it. As Lin Xiu tried to lift it up again, it crumbled into pieces. This skill is too godlike. It can even turn a steel spear like that. Lin Xiu clicked his tongue when he witnessed the after effects of the spear. After recovering, Lin Xiu naturally thought of returning to the town at District 820. They had come here for the actual combat practice, and it was about time to return. It had already been 3 days. He grabbed onto the large branches of the tree and pulled onto the vines as he started climbing upwards. Lin Xiu did not dare to relax. He knew that if he were to fall again, it would be troubling. Xu Zhan, 3 rank 1 odd crystal. Li Yan, 1 rank 2 odd crystal. 4 rank 1 odd crystal. At this moment, Lo Li was standing at the gate city and saw students returning and could not help but reveal a satisfied expression. After 3 days of actual combat training, the majority of students had returned differently. They had become stronger and determined. A person can only be tempered through actual combat. As time went on, more and more people came back. Lo Li heaved a sigh of relief. There shouldn't be anyone dead this time, right? Yan Tian's eyes looked towards the city gates, seemingly out of sorts. Yang Tian, did you see Lin Xiu? Right at this time, Lo Li had finished counting the head count and was frowning. They were lacking a person. He was someone that did not have any fighting prowess in the past but had recently erupted with powerful strength. Lin Xiu. I haven't seen him. The expression on Yang Tian's face changed as he shook his head and recalled everything that had happened that day. You said he ran farther into the forest? Lo Li was shocked when he heard Yan Tian's story. Extremely high-rank evolved beasts thrived further into the region, and even he, himself, did not dare tread too deep in. If Lin Xiu truly ran in that direction, he most probably suffered a mishap. Trash is trash. He would have been eaten by zombies or killed by evolved beasts. Jiang Yi snorted as he dropped on them. He was extremely unhappy when he heard Yan Tian recalling about him running away. At that time, he was only afraid for a moment, and actually dealing with the rank 1 zombie was nothing to him. The others all revealed strange looks, while some looked as though they were enjoying a show, rejoicing in the supposed calamity of Lin Xiu. We will wait for a bit more. Maybe he is on the way back. Lo Li stood at the entrance and said, "The sun was setting and the sky was about to turn dark. Forget it. He must be dead." He was still salty about losing to Lin Xiu. Although the broken arm could be healed, the same cannot be said for his shame from being defeated by the trash. It was something that could not be washed away so quickly. But as long as Lin Xiu was dead, this matter would be forgotten, right? Who says I'm dead? Right at this moment, a voice came out from afar. A young figure appeared in the distance. Chapter 19. Plenty odd crystals. Lin Xiu! Yang Tian was elated when he saw Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu walked over. While returning, he had already realized that he had escaped in the wrong direction. Thus he encountered the high-rank evolved beast. Your luck must be good since you didn't die, Jiang Yi sneered when he saw Lin Xiu. But what he felt strange was that the current Lin Xiu seemed to have a pressuring aura around him, making him feel very uneasy. Could it be that he had grown stronger again? Xu Jian's face became uglier. He hid behind the others and did not walk forward. Lin Xiu, are you all right? Lo Li saw Lin Xiu's tattered clothes, and he did not even have his battle blade. He looked like he had gone through a lot. I'm fine, teacher. Lin Xiu, did you not kill even one evolved beast? Jiang Yi, lackey, Ye Chu, sized Lin Xiu up, and seeing that he had returned empty-handed, he decided to mock him. The others also looked at Lin Xiu. The actual combat test actually had a hidden competition. Those who hunted the most number of evolved beasts and gained the most number of odd crystal were said to be able to earn a prize. This was the non-profit for the actual combat training every year. But if no one had more odd crystal than Jiang Yi, he would be in the first place of the actual combat training. Who said I didn't? Lin Xiu raised an eyebrow and refuted. He took the sack he was carrying on his back down, causing everyone to be surprised. Could it be that everything inside was odd crystals? Impossible. Even the class number 1 in terms of combat strength, the one said to be closest to becoming an official warrior, Jiang Yi, only killed 8 rank 1 evolved beasts and obtained 8 odd crystals. Lin Xiu sneered and opened the sack which contained odd crystal of all sorts of colors. 16 rank 1 odd crystal, 5 rank 2 odd crystals. Everyone's face changed when they heard Lin Xiu holding on to 5 ranks 2 odd crystals. Rank 2 odd crystals could only be obtained by killing rank 2 evolved beast. And more importantly, rank 2 evolved beast had strength equivalent to rank 1 warriors. How could a beginner warrior kill so many of them? Right when they were in shock, Yang Tian rubbed his eyes as he exclaimed, Rank 3 odd crystal? The completely dark green odd crystal made Yang Tian recall something. Could it be that the rank 3 color changing python was killed by Lin Xiu? That's too much. It was a rank 3 evolved beast. Impossible. That's impossible. Zhang Yi roared in shock. Lin Xiu odd crystals were far more than what he had obtained, especially for the rank 3 odd crystal. This had stabbed into his ego. Teacher Lo, Lin Xiu must have cheated. That's impossible. Yet Xiu roared as well. Everyone cast suspicious glares at him as well. Cheated? Why don't you cheat for me to see? Lin Xiu squinted his eyes and glanced at everyone. Everyone immediately became silent when they heard him. The value of a rank 3 odd crystal was something none of them could afford, and no one would be stupid to buy an odd crystal in the actual combat training and competition to cheat. All right, everyone. Results this time exceed my expectation. Let us all return to the pub, said Lo Li. District 820's pub was not an actual pub, but a location to freely deal and accept missions. The pub was extremely huge with many computers around. Through the computers, people could access the Warrior Union website where they could buy information and purchase weapon crystals and so on. But all of this could only be accessed after passing the test. It was a service only for official warriors. Students, all your odd crystals can be sold to the pub boss. Or you can also wait until you've become official warriors and absorb the energy within using cultivation techniques to increase your strength. Lo Li stood in the center and introduced the system to the students, but most of the students chose to sell them. One rank 1 odd crystal was roughly 1,000 union coins. It was very valuable. By selling a few crystals and obtaining 1,000 union coins was sufficient for them to live for a month. You actually have a rank 3 odd crystal? The pub boss was surprised when he saw Lin Xiu's rank 3 odd crystal. He knew that Jinyao Academy students would come annually to train, but he had never encountered a student that was capable of obtaining a rank 3 odd crystal. It was out of his expectations. How much for this? Lin Xiu asked. An odd crystal from a rank 3 color-changing python? This is rarely seen. How about 500,000? The boss thought for a bit before asking. 500,000? All the students had their mouths wide open and when they heard the astronomical amount, 500,000. That was an astronomical amount. Sure. After selling all the wood crystals, Lin Xiu obtained 600,000 more union coins. Although it seemed a lot, Lin Xiu knew that it was far from enough. In the future, when purchasing skill, equipment, and whatnot, he would exhaust far more union coins than that. This few 100,000 was a drop in the ocean for warriors. Aren't they students from class 29? Right at this time, another group of people entered the pub. They were dressed in battle robes that had the same logo of Jinyao Academy. They were obviously from the same school and out for an actual combat training. Class 1, Yang Tian saw and raised his eyebrows. Class 1, hailed as cream of the crop, had peak standards of beginner warriors. It was said that there were a few gifted ones that were already at the standard of official warriors. Just a bunch of trash. Why bother about them? As the class monitor, Zhang Yi naturally felt unhappy when he heard their words and clenched his fist. What? Zhang Yi, just based on your strength, you wish to beat me? A boy saw his actions and sneered immediately. He was called San Chen and was already in the ranks of official warriors. He was ranked 108 in the Jinyao Academy Combat Strength ranking. This ranking was already extremely powerful amongst the tens of thousands of students in Junyao Academy. Jiang Yi's expression turned ugly. He was ranked in the thousands and could not fight him at all. So he did not dare say anything. Scram! Don't be a hindrance. Right at this time, another disdainful voice rang out from the other side. Chapter 20. I am Lin Xiu. What are you doing? Yan Tian asked indignantly. He was still looking at the missions on the display screen and wanted to see if he could complete some missions to earn rewards when he realized he was being pushed away. What? You want to fight? Seeing how angry Yang Tian was, the boy who pushed him away sneered and replied coldly, You! Yang Tian clenched his fist as his heart was filled with rage, but he was not strong enough. The person in front of him was a quasi-warrior, and he was no match for him based on his strength. You guys from class 29 are at the bottom of the list. You'll be the same no matter how hard you train. All right, I heard that the trash Lin Xiu is in your class, as expected of a trash class. Li Yuan sneered and remarked, Excuse me. Right at this moment, a voice sounded behind him. Li Yuan turned and saw Lin Xiu, who had appeared out of nowhere. After 3 days of training, Lin Xiu's temperament was different. If no one recognized who he was, they would never connect him to the trash from Xingyao Academy. Excuse your mother. Li Yuan coldly glanced at him and replied. Lin Xiu's gaze changed as he extended his hand and launched an attack. Beginner warrior? Seeking death. Li Yuan laughed and casually clenched his fist in retaliation. His fist immediately collided with Lin Xiu's fist head-on. A loud bang was produced from the impact. Logically, he believed that his fist was enough to smash Lin Xiu's fist into smithereens. Reality struck as he discovered in surprise that not only was Lin Xiu's fist fine, but also his fist was the one in pain. Yuan did not hesitate and released his right leg with the intention to kick Lin Xiu in the chest, but Lin Xiu seemed to have anticipated. His figure immediately flickered as he avoided the kick. He performed a reverse kick to the leg and pushed Li Yuan a distance away. How was that possible? Li Yuan was overwhelmed with surprise as his face revealed shock. Lin Xiu squinted his eyes. He was able to discern from the analytic eye that although Li Yuan's strength was higher than his, he was faster than Li Yuan. Seems you have some capability. Li Yuan became serious as he activated all his strength. He immediately charged at Lin Xiu. Explosive punch. Bronze skill. Explosive punch. As the name suggested, training in the skill would result in being able to produce explosions from every punch. He knew that learning skills were difficult, and only official warriors had the ability to grasp them. But Li Yuan had unleashed explosive punch and had done so with proficiency. Bang, bang, bang. Successive vacuum explosions were produced, and Li Xiu had no choice but to dodge them. How strong did he become? Jiang Yi's expression grew ugly as he witnessed the battle. In all fairness, even he might not have successfully dodged Li Yuan's fast and powerful explosive punches, but Lin Xiu was able to anticipate Li Yuan's attacks and avoid every strike. Damn it! Fury has a 3-day cooldown time, otherwise I would be able to defeat him now. Lin Xiu gritted his teeth and avoided a few more strikes. Li Yuan smiled happily. A student of class 29 actually wanted to compete with him? But at the next moment, Lin Xiu had grasped the opportunity and stopped Liu Yuan's right arm as he punched out before twisting his arm forcefully. A loud cracking sound was heard as Liu Yuan's arm was twisted at a 90-degree angle. The momentum from his own strength was not for naught. Arr! Li Yuan opened his eyes wide as he let out a wail. You dare to beat Class 1 people? Beat him! Upon seeing the result of the battle, Class 1 erupted in anger and roared. What are you all doing? Yang Tian and the other students walked over. Although they did not dare to speak up previously, they were all youths. After being bullied, they no longer cared. While the students of both classes faced off against each other, Lo Li and the teacher in charge of Class 1, Jiang Xiao, walked in. What are you all doing? Jiang Xiao frowned and questioned sternly. Teacher Jiang, someone from Class 29 broke Liu Yuan's arm. A boy reported the deed to the teacher. He then glanced at Lin Xiu. He was the one to instigate this. He called our class trash and even pushed me. Yang Tian refuted. Lo Li frowned and waved his hand. He turned to Yang Tian and said, Tell me what transpired in detail. Yang Tian nodded his head and did not exaggerate anything. He recounted everything factually to the teachers. Lo Li was already angry when he heard that Li Yuan had mocked his class as trash. He even felt appeased upon hearing how Lin Xiu had broken the boy's arm, but he could not show it on his face. How can you beat your schoolmate? Lo Li stood in front of Lin Xiu and feigned anger. That's right. What kind of people do you have in your class? Someone from Class 1 spoke up angrily. Lin Xiu quickly apologized to him. Lo Li added. He asked him to apologize, but he deliberately stressed on Lin Xiu's name. Didn't you say that Lin Xiu is a trash at the bottom? To be beaten up by a trash? Who is real trash? Student Li apologized. I should not have hit so heavily just now. Lin Xiu apologized to Li Yuan, who was still wailing in pain. Their faces turned ugly when they heard Lin Xiu's words. What? Not hit so heavily? That's clearly mocking them. What is your name? Jiang Xiao frowned and asked Lin Xiu. You don't know? Then let me introduce myself. Lin Xiu frowned and said, I'm the one he called trash, Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu? When they heard his name, they could not help but be surprised. The one that received the most attention in Jin Yao Academy as the best student, but simultaneously the worst one. Everyone in the academy knew about the number one from the bottom, Lin Xiu. At this moment, many of the students from Class 1 felt heat on their faces, especially Li Yuan. He even forgot the pain in his arm as the humiliation and shame were too great. What was he then, if he was beaten by the trash? Chapter 21 Combat Strength Test. You're really Lin Xiu? Sun Chen looked at Lin Xiu viciously. He had heard of the name of this lowest-ranking student in the academy, but he never expected to actually meet Lin Xiu under these circumstances. Moreover, he even broke Li Yuan's arm. Even though Li Yuan had underestimated his enemy, and there was the element of luck, Sun Chen had to admit that Lin Xiu's strength was definitely not at the bottom. That's right. Lin Xiu nodded, then said to Li Yuan, Sorry, I went a little too hard. I'll pay for your medical treatment. You... Hearing Lin Xiu's words, Li Yuan was so furious that he nearly spat out a mouthful of blood. Courting death! When a guy heard Lin Xiu's arrogant tone, he couldn't tolerate it and was about to take action. Stop! Jiang Xiang knitted his brows and yelled. That guy stopped what he was doing when he heard Jiang Xiao. Don't embarrass our Jingyao Academy here. Both parties are at fault and Lin Xiu had already apologized. Jiang Xiao didn't want matters to reach a deadlock, and Li Xiu was a loser anyway, so Jiang Xiao would be tarnishing his own class reputation by fighting with him. Lin Xiu, do you dare to come for the final battle test? With support from everyone, Li Yuan stared at Lin Xiu and asked, at the end of every term, there would be a battle of strength before a new round of rankings was conducted. The top 100 students would receive the Academy's cultivation resources. Why not? Lin Xiu raised his brows and replied, Sure, I'll be waiting. Li Yuan said with a ferocious glint in his eyes. Not long after, the students from Class 1 dispersed. The remaining people looked at Lin Xiu in surprise. Never mind that he defeated Xu Jun previously, they didn't expect that even Li Yuan from Class 1 was also in Lin Xiu's control. Lin Xiu, amazing! You broke this fella's hand. Yang Tian patted Lin Xiu's shoulder and said. At that moment, Lo Li was also looking at Lin Xiu with eyes of admiration. Lo Li didn't expect that Lin Xiu would actually improve so much within such a short period of time. All right, everyone, please measure your combat strength. I would like to see if there is an increase after the combat training, Lo Li said to everyone. The combat strength test apparatus was the Federation's latest development. It could reveal the strength of a person's muscles, the power of a person's explosive force as well as various attributes, and give a combat strength score, although it was reasonable to say that the higher the combat strength score was, the stronger one's physique would be. But in actual combat, combat strength was not everything. People with a lower combat strength could also defeat someone with a slightly higher combat strength. The Bob was well equipped and this combat strength test apparatus was also found here. Lo Li watched as everyone went on the apparatus and recorded the results in a booklet. Ye Chu, beginner warrior, overall combat strength 450. Ming Mu, beginner warrior, overall combat strength 389. Yan Tian, beginner warrior, overall combat strength 469. My combat strength only increased by 20 points. Yang Tian said, slightly upset. As long as there is an improvement, Lo Li nodded towards him as he recorded it down. After the actual combat training, everyone's body coordination had improved, and some even become stronger. Their combat strength had also increased by over 20 points, which Lo Li was quite satisfied with. Jiang Yi, go up, Lo Li said to Jiang Yi when he saw that almost everybody was done. As the class monitor of Class 29, Jiang Yi was quite gifted in the aspect of cultivation despite his character. Lo Li was still quite eager to see whether Jiang Yi's current strength had improved. Jiang Yi nodded, then slowly walked to that combat strength test apparatus as everyone watched. As the apparatus was activated, Jiang Yi data was being calculated. Everyone from Class 29 crowded around, and the students looked like they were holding their breaths. Very soon, a line of words appeared on the display. Quasi-warrior. Overall combat strength 675. Quasi-warrior? Jiang Yi has already become a quasi-warrior? The students gasped in surprise. Usually, people with a combat strength of 300 to 600 were beginner warrior. 600 to 800 were quasi-warriors, and 800 to 1,500 were rank 1 warriors. It seemed like Zhang Yi was close to becoming an official warrior. Those who become an official warrior before college, which was around the age of 18 years old, were considered good seedlings. Lo Li nodded and appeared quite pleased. Zhang Yi's progress was obvious to all, which made him very happy. Zhang Yi, since you're now a quasi-warrior, you can try learning cultivation technique tomorrow in school, Lo Li said to Zhang Yi. Sure! Zhang Yi was delighted and quickly nodded. Official warriors were so strong because of this cultivation technique. There were many beneficial energies in the universe, and mankind called them sources. By absorbing the source energy in the air, which strengthened their cell energies, the muscle in their body and even bones were constantly strengthened. Next up, Lin Xiu. After Lo Li recorded Zhang Yi in combat strength, he looked at the next name and paused before calling out. At this moment, when everyone heard Lin Xiu's name, the students all turned and looked at him. This loser, who was once at the bottom, had an explosive energy in just a short period of time which shocked everyone. Even when a loser has a little bit of strength, he is still a loser. Ye Qiu stood next to Zhang Yi and scoffed. Hearing that Ye Qiu said, Zhang Yi's face lit up slightly. He thought so too. Even if Lin Xiu had become slightly stronger, he was still at the most a beginner warrior and wasn't a threat to him at all. Hey, why don't you break Class 1 Li Yuan arms as well if you're so great, huh? Yang Tian couldn't help but speak up when he heard Ye Qiu's ridicule. You. Ye Qiu's expression changed and he pointed at Yang Tian with a trembling finger. He's just lucky, Ye Qiu retorted. You'll find out the combat strength of this loser very soon. Just watch. Lin Xiu didn't care about the discussions around him and took a deep breath, then stood on top of the apparatus. The apparatus was running, and a few lasers shone on Lin Xiu's body. Very soon the machine began to analyze his results. Everyone's eyes were on the display of the apparatus. How would the former number 1 loser of the academy perform this time? Soon the machine's smart analysis was completed, and a line of words appeared on the display. Chapter 22. 10 years with swords, 100 years with spears. Ding! As the sound rang out, a line of words appeared on the display. Quasi-warrior, overworld combat, strength 676. Damn! Yang Tiang initially guessed that Lin Xiu's combat strength wouldn't be too low, but he didn't expect that it would be so high. Also, Lin Xiu's combat strength just happened to be 1 point higher than Zhang Yi. Impossible, impossible, Zhang Yi mumbled to himself. The others were dumbfounded. This was unbelievable. How could he improve so quickly in just a few short days? Could it be that he had been hiding his strength all this while? The students looked at Lin Xiu differently now, and the look of disdain faded away from their faces. Lin Xiu stood in the center at this moment with his fist clenched tightly. He was merely the top in a class right now, and that wasn't enough. He wanted to be the top warrior. Lo Li was shocked too. Lin Xiu had simply brought him too many surprises. Great, great. We finally have 2 quasi-warriors in our class now. Next morning, everybody took the maglev train back. Due to the exhaustion from the past 3 days, everyone was much more active when they returned. Lin Xiu, Zhang Yi come over. After a half-a-day journey, everyone arrived at Jingyao Academy. After the other students left, Lo Li asked Lin Xiu and Zhang Yi to stay behind. Since both of you have reached the quasi-warrior level, you may try choosing the direction of your future development. Lo Li brought Zhang Yi and Lin Xiu to the martial arts hall and said to them, "Direction?" Zhang Yi was stunned, like he was overwhelmed. "You guys should know, right? The skins of evolved beasts that are rank 3 and above had changed. Right now, even lasers are unable to penetrate their skin, not to mention the bullet technology in the past. But with mankind's efforts, we have finally gathered some special metal from other planets, and weapons created with these special metals could break through their armor and cause damage to them." "You're saying that we can choose our weapons?" Lin Xiu interrupted Luo Li and asked. The former Lin Xiu combat strength was very weak, but he was the top student for his knowledge of mankind's history and other topics. "That's right," Luo Li nodded. "Pick the right weapon, then fit it in with its corresponding skill, and this would display the strength of a true warrior. Swords, great at piercing, could hurt people in every direction, able to use for attack and defend. Knives, great at chopping, could cause large-scale damage when used with a skill, is the weapon with the strongest killing power." "Teacher Lo, what is the weapon you use?" Zhang Yi thought about it and asked. "Staff. I use a staff." Lo Ri reached out and brought his staff over without hesitation. Even though staves only caused blunt injuries and weren't as bloody as compared to sabers and swords, it could still cause a great deal of damage when used with a skill. Lo Li held his staff, then stood in the middle of the martial arts hall. He yelled, "Silver skill, sweep of heaven and earth." The second he waved his staff, a huge shadow appeared in a flash. Bang! The staff hit the ground and the entire ground began shaking as if there was an earthquake. Amazing! Lin Xiu clicked his tongue when he saw this scene. He had heard that Lo Li was a rank 3 warrior, but he didn't expect that the same silver skill would be so much stronger when performed by a rank 3 warrior compared to that rank 2 warrior in the A20 district forest he met previously. If that staff hit a person, he or she would probably be smashed into a pulp. This is just a silver skill. There is still gold skill and diamond skill. Those are more powerful but are also harder to cultivate. Lo Li placed his staff back to its original place and said, "I've decided that I want to use a saber." Zhang Yi nodded and said, "During the A20 district real combat training, he found the battle blade that the academy distributed to everyone was quite easy to use. I also think that the saber is quite suited to you." Lo Li nodded, then walked to the computer and began to record the information with a card. Very soon, he handed Zhang Yi the card with Jinyao Academy's logo printed on it. "Your information is inside the card already. Take this card and go to the second floor of the library. You can get the Secret Saber Techniques card and the Cultivation Technique." "Thank you, teacher." Zhang Yi was brimming with joy when he received the card. After thanking the teacher, he began walking towards the library. "Lin Xiu, even though I don't know how your strength has skyrocketed, everyone has their own secrets and I wouldn't probe. But what weapon have you decided to use?" Lo Li spoke to Lin Xiu with a complex gaze. In terms of knowledge, Lin Xiu was definitely considered a genius, but in terms of cultivation, he had a very poor attitude. Lo Li didn't think that he could actually reach the level of a quasi-warrior in such a short period of time, and this was simply shocking. Spear, Lin Xiu replied directly without hesitation. Spear? Loli was taken aback. He thought that with Lin Xiu's character he would choose swords or sabers, but never expected that he would choose spears. A spear was considered the king of 100 soldiers, and its killing power was extraordinarily strong. But, as the saying goes, it takes a year to be a good with sabers, 10 years with swords, and 100 years with spears. Spears could be said to be one of the most challenging weapons to train. Once trained well, it would be formidable. Just like Zhang Zilong from the famous scene in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, he was using a spear. Could you tell me why you choose this weapon? Lo Li asked out of curiosity. He felt that he couldn't understand the current Lin Xiu. If not for the fact that Lin Xiu looked exactly the same, Lo Li would have thought that he was a different person. Teacher Lo, do you know who is the top warrior in the world? Lin Xiu didn't answer his question and looked at him with a squint as he spoke. Before Lo Li could answer, Lin Xiu continued. Dong Fanghua. He uses a sword, and his famous skill, drowning sword method, was said to be able to slash an entire town. The second in the world is an American, Tuo Ersi, and he uses a giant sword. Teacher Luo, don't you think that the list of top 10 warriors in the world is lacking a warrior who uses a spear? Luo Li's mouth opened wide, and when he looked at Lin Xiu, he saw something called ambition. Chapter 23 Silver Immortal Soul. Lo Li was in a state of shock as he watched Lin Xiu back view as he left with his card. He had a premonition that Lin Xiu might truly become the #1 spear warrior in the world's ranking. Jinyao Academy's library was not the ordinary library of the past. The majority of libraries no longer used the old paper books of the past. The majority had turned to electronic books, and most of the libraries all had supercomputers that were capable of downloading information through the web. Aside from keeping historical items on the other floors, most were used to contain ancient weapons. The second floor was where skills cards were kept. Aside from basic weapon and cultivation techniques, the other skills required union coins or were rewarded by the academy. Lin Xiu noticed many students walking in and out upon arriving at the library. The gigantic library, it looked like it came out of a science fiction movie, but it was also filled with many installations. It was truly something he could only see in the movies in his previous world. Upon arriving on the second floor, Lin Xiu saw many glass displays with various bronze skills cards and felt dazzled by them. Many students relied on part-time work to earn union coins and purchase skill cards. In theory, only quasi-warriors had the ability to fully unleash the power of bronze skill cards, while official warriors and above could train in silver cards. There were extremely few gold and above skills. Even if it was on the market, it would be extremely expensive. Without overthinking it, Lin Xiu walked to the installation in the center and swiped the card provided by Lo Li. 2 cards slowly floated from the bottom of the screen. Both cards had various engravings on them with bold golden words in the center. Fundamental Spear Arts Cultivation Technique. Lin Xiu, I won't lose to you. Right at this time, Zhang Yi appeared from the side and spoke earnestly to Lin Xiu. Lin Xiu had become much stronger in a short period of time. The pressure on Zhang Yi was immense, but correspondingly it had incited an unprecedented fighting spirit. Let's wait and see, Lin Xiu replied indifferently. With both spear and cultivation technique at hand, he was only lacking in a weapon. But he had yet to become an official warrior, and could not enter the Warrior Union web to purchase weapons. So he could only head to the Academy's Spirit Weapon Establishment. There was a specialized weapon craftsman that forged weapons. Kid, what weapon do you want? Just as Lin Xiu walked in, a bearded middle-aged man spoke to him. A spear. Lin Xiu nodded his head and replied. Spear? The middle-aged man was startled before chuckling. I've just made a spear here. Take a look. Lin Xiu followed him over and saw a silver spear. It was glistening with a cold aura and looked extremely sharp. How is it? Want to have a go with it? This was made from Xinyu ores from Moonstar. No need to talk about its sharpness. It is capable to even break through the skin of a rank 3 evolved beast. The middle-aged man took a sword out and slashed onto a gigantic beast armor. Sparks were produced from the attack and left behind a deep scar. Lin Xiu took a similar style sword and tried it out for a bit. He even used his finger to touch the spear tip slightly, which instantly led to blood. It was extremely sharp. See? It's good. Special price for it now, 50,000 for one. The middle-aged man laughed and said, But it's a bit too light. Lin Xiu felt something was wrong with it, and after pondering about it, he felt that it was the weight. The unique point about Xinyu Wars is its lightweight, but it is sharp enough. The middle-aged man added, but seeing Lin Xiu's dissatisfied look, he had to shake his head. There is a heavy one, but I'm afraid you can pick it up. Let's try it. Lin Xiu's eyes lit up upon hearing that. Give me a moment. The middle-aged man nodded his head and walked into the back room. Lin Xiu took a look around, and the middle-aged man returned soon with a large wooden box. The wooden box was covered in dust, as though not been touched for a long time. The middle-aged man blew on it with a and the dust scattered away. Cough, cough. Lin Xiu covered his mouth. We haven't sold these heavy spears in a long time. Not because there aren't people who use spears, but very few can utilize such heavy spears. The middle-aged man laughed as he opened the box. A silver spear was inside, causing Lin Xiu's eyes to sparkle. This silver spear was different from the one before. It was not as bright, but had a reserved beauty. This spear was relatively larger than the others, and even though it had a weak glow to it, he was able to see the cold glint of the spear tip. Can I give it a go? Lin Xiu asked happily. Yes, you may. The middle-aged man nodded his head in approval. As soon as he took the spear, Lin Xiu almost dropped it. Do you know how heavy this spear is? The middle-aged man leaned against the table and asked rather excitedly, how heavy it is. After exerting his utmost strength to carry it, Lin Xiu finally held it tight. 65 kilograms. Damn it, Lin Xiu cursed. It was as heavy as a grown man. Ordinary people would not even be able to brandish it. It's called Silver Immortal Soul. It's made from Yin ore, but it uses the mother stone of the Yin ore, which is much heavier. Not only is it heavier, but its sharpness and durability are twice better than weapons made out of ordinary Yin ores. The middle-aged man wanted to laugh at Lin Xiu, but his mouth quickly gaped open, because right at this moment it looked as though Lin Xiu was actually dancing and getting used to the spear. Lin Xiu adored it more and more. Although it was heavier, he would get used to it through practice. "I'm taking it." The spear cost Lin Xiu 35,000 Union coins. Lin Xiu had changed his dorm to a stand-alone dorm. After all, he was no longer suitable on the other side, since Ma Qiang and the others did not dare to stay with him. When he returned to his dorm, Lin Xiu lay in bed comfortably, carrying the spear bag to a toll on him. He was definitely different with money. He was able to switch to a dorm just for himself.